Welcome to the Busy Pastor Podcast. If you're interested in leadership and ministry coaching, go to busypastor.org/coaching. Join the Busy Pastor community today by going to busypastor.org, filling out the form, and you will receive more free resources, starting with our Fab 5 resource, helping you determine the 5 things only you can do. And so let's go back to this invitation conversation. Which is really the next point here. Number 5 is to teach your people and give examples to your people on how to invite their friends.
Yeah.
And so talk about this principle.
Yeah, that's big because you can tell people to invite people all day long, but it's still hard for people to do that. How do they do that? So give them examples. You know, these are in the weeks leading up to your big day. These are examples of how to do that. So in your sermons, give some examples. In the announcements, give some examples. You might do it on social media in some form or fashion, but some kind of card, business size card or whatever that they can actually use to hand to somebody with the details that says, come to this, or, through social media, there's an image or a logo or something that they can share with their friends. Give them examples of conversations that they will have that can lead into, by the way, our church is doing this thing. It might be a mailer. And so, when it's a mailer that comes in the mailbox, you could ask your neighbors, hey, did you get that in the mail? Yeah, that's where I go. Love for you to go. So those kinds of things, everybody listening knows about door hangers and block parties and those kinds of things that happen in the community to try to, get some momentum there and try to give people opportunities to invite. Sometimes, we've used like those real estate signs that people yard signs that they can put in their front yard, which is a really good thing to do when your kids are involved in sports and school activities and those kinds of things. Be intentional, giving them some intentional ways to say, here's how you can invite everybody on your team, or, let your kids have a slumber party the weekend before on that Saturday, and then everybody wakes up on Sunday and goes to church. Things like that are just like practical ways that people might go, oh, never thought about that. I'd love to do that. And I could bring my whole basketball team or softball team or whatever. They'd all stay the night at our house and we could bring the entire team. So you just want to come up with as many examples and try to use those to train your people how to do it.
Absolutely. And several weeks before a big event that we do, we are encouraging our people, and this is what you want to be doing, to begin to pray about who can you invite. Mm-hmm. So this day is 3 weeks out. Pray about who in your life that you've been intentional to develop a relationship with, or you have a relationship with, that you can invite.
Yeah. And we've done things where, the card, write the name down, take it with you, and then just keep that somewhere, in your house that you can continue to pray for them. We've written names on boards, and not got specific, so that if somebody shows up and saw their name, hey, that's me. No, not that blatant, but just like my brother or whatever, and just kind of put those up on a board and then have people pray over that board on a consistent basis. Things like that are just, visual ways to, remind people to pray.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what's our next principle?
The next one would be just like how to, build momentum. Mm-hmm. So you need to build momentum, and you want to be able to do that so people can start to build anticipation. And that's helpful when you're using it in the sermons prior to the big day, or when you're using these other media components to do that. Because if the goal is to invite everybody or bring somebody on church that day, they need to know that, what the why is behind that. And so now you're talking about, just this burden for those who are lost. And when you're preaching this prior to that day, or you're talking about it in some way, this holy unrest, like, man, yes, we care about people who are far from the Lord. And yes, on this day, God is going to move. And yes, we believe that he's going to save people. And yes, we believe that he can do this. And so as you're talking about that, and as you're preaching about these things, that builds momentum and anticipation, for people to actually do it. And then a lot of times, I think it's helpful to actually on that big day start a brand new series, or at least, the next Sunday you're starting a brand new series. That would be, maybe more practical, maybe a 3 or 4 week, more practical, maybe on marriage or parenting or something like that. So that if the lost person comes and yes, here's the gospel and, makes the decision, fantastic. Or if he doesn't, you can still encourage him and say, hey, next week, the new series we start is on marriage.
Right.
And that might be one of those hooks where they would say, okay, well, we'll come back for that. So something intentional like that would be at least worth thinking about. That way you're continuing that momentum that you've built up.
Yeah. And I love this principle of momentum here, because when you do a big event or a big day like this, you're not just seeing the momentum of a growing attendance and people coming to faith, and that's the goal. But then you have all these other effects of a big day, right? You get the momentum of relationship and like your people being together. They go from being side by side in a service to face, doing something together.
Yeah.
Right. And those types of intangibles help grow your community in ways that are really hard to fake or to kind of put together, in different types of ways. And so,
when you and I are praying for someone specific, a neighbor, a friend, by name, asking God to save them, and we've been praying about this person for weeks. And then on this day, the person shows up. I mean, how excited are you and I?
Yeah.
And that's what happens with your people.
Right.
As they see God moving in the lives of all these other, these people that they've been praying for and caring about, that builds faith, it builds momentum, it builds energy, and it reminds us that yes, we are on the mission of God here together. And so that side by side, face to face prayer time and seeing
Absolutely.
God work. And then, when that person does come to faith, that's just like a grand slam. It's just like, oh my gosh, yes, God is working. He's faithful. And that's what we're all about.
Yep. And that's the momentum we want to see from a day like this. And so principle number 7, as we continue the conversation here.
I think you also want to focus on the next step. Mm-hmm. And so the next step could be, yes, receive Christ. But, maybe you're not a Billy Graham evangelist, and you don't see that. Doesn't mean it's not a win, because you're talking about the next step. The next step for them might be salvation. It might be baptism. Maybe they've never been baptized. And so that's an opportunity. The next step might be come back next Sunday.
Yeah.
The next step might be get in a small group. You want to present the gospel on that day, and I would give them an opportunity to respond to that, but you don't want to hammer it so hard and just come off like you're begging for decisions, and then if nobody makes a decision, it's you lose all this steam. No, we expect God to move, and we do our part, and that's all we do.
Yeah.
And then we leave the results up to God. Right. And so we don't get discouraged, if one person responds or if no people or if 20 people, whatever the response is, that's left to God. The joy is in the journey, and the joy is in, challenging people to take their next step. Right. And so it may not be today, it may be next week or the following week or down the road. So you want to focus on that next step.
Yeah. And then this final principle after the next step is really important. Yes. So I would say that, you could have started with this one. We could have started with this one, I mean, they all build on each other.
Yeah. In no particular order, I guess, but you need to have a solid guest experience system. Yes. If you're not ready for new people, chances are God's not going to send any new people your way. And so how do you get ready? Well, there's a lot of things, involved in the guest experience, from when they first walk up to the door and get out of their car, to also what does follow-up look like? Right. And so, this is a huge, probably should do a whole episode on the guest experience system. We probably will in the future, but this is one of those things where you've got to have a volunteer team that is directing people to park, is saying hello to people as they get out of their car. You have clear directional signs. Where do I go? And sometimes you need to bring in outside friends to come to your church so that they can be first-time guests at your place, and so they can give you some helpful info. Just say, man, I didn't know where to go. I couldn't find the bathrooms. There weren't trash cans where I needed them. I was lost. It wasn't clean, whatever it is. And so we need to know all that, because when they get out of the car, they need to feel welcomed, and they need to know where they're going. And if they've got kids, that check-in process with kids, do they feel like it's safe? Do they, is it clean? Are the volunteers friendly and warm? All of that is important to people in our context. And then as they come into the auditorium, are you embarrassing them, or are you giving them a safe place to just kind of experience? I think gone are the days where we're asking people to stand up and who's a first-time guest today?
Right.
That was always cringy anyway. But, some people just, they, especially non-believers, they just want to, kind of be in the shadows to kind of experience the day before they want to be known, or they want to take that first step and fill out a, first-time guest card or whatever that might be. But it's vitally important that you're able to connect with first-time guests. They know where to go. You're giving them information. You're making it clear, and then you're able to follow up on them. If you're just getting that information and you're not following up on them at all, then that's another piece of the guest experience. Like, what do you do with that information? Do you get an email? Do you get a phone call? Get a letter? People praying over them? Is it a handwritten letter, which I think is really good. So all of those things are a part of, a big day, because the last thing you want to do is get some new people in your building and then not do anything with them. You want them to experience, friendships and friendly people and have a good experience. And then you want to be able to reach out to them and encourage them to come back. So I guess experience and a follow-up system is really, really important. You need help and volunteers in order to make that happen. You also need, so say someone does, they want to commit their life to Christ. Okay, what do? Where do they go? Is that an easy step for them? Are you making them come down the aisle in front of people? Are you giving them a website to go to? Is there a room that they can go to afterwards? Do you have trained counselors that are prepared and ready that day? Again, I'd rather have tons of people there and ready to counsel, just in case the Spirit moves and there's a lot of people here that need to respond. And I'd rather that than only have one or two ready, and then, 3 or 4 multiple people come, back to make a decision. And now what am I doing? Well, now I've got one person trying to counsel 2 or 3 people at a time, and that's not helpful or good for anybody. So you want to over prepare on counselors and, all of that aspect, so that you're ready and you're prepared for decisions that might happen. If you're not prepared, then most likely those decisions won't come. And so I think God blesses our preparation, and we're praying that God saves X number of people. I never do that, but I just want to be ready,
right?
And just watch and see what God does.
Yeah, man, that's so good. God blesses our prayers. He blesses our preparation, and He blesses our intentionality in the moment, and He blesses our follow-up, throughout the week when we're saying, this is a day that we're really going to give a lot of our bandwidth to, our people bandwidth, our budget bandwidth, our time bandwidth, and it's going to be something that, that's going to be excellent. I think we have seen here at FC God do some amazing things. Yeah, really that kind of go beyond our expectations of what the day's going to be.
Oh, absolutely. So often. Yeah. And, whether it's Easter, whether we're going off site to go to a bigger venue or something like that, or we're doing multiple services, just opening up that space, telling our people to invite people, having an evangelistic, mindset and heartbeat, that builds that culture into your people, and they get in a rhythm of where they're inviting people, and you have some of these days, God just, he'll start filling up those rooms, and you'll see decisions happen, and you'll see momentum build, I think, as a result. And sometimes when we were, especially in smaller spaces, we always had an overflow room ready too.
Yeah.
And there were a handful of days that we put budget into some space and some equipment and some chairs that we rented and that kind of thing as an overflow space. And then maybe you used it. One person was there. And, I'm still glad we did it. I don't think it was a waste of money or energy, because we were telling God, we have faith that, you know what, you might bring so many people on this Sunday. We want to be as ready and prepared as possible. And so, we can laugh about it, but, there were days when we had overflow rooms and there were people in them.
Yeah.
And so, you just expect great things from God when you attempt great things for God, right? Did I get that right?
I think you did.
Okay.
Yeah. Jim Elliott.
So you just want to make the attempt, step out in faith. You're not going to say X number of people are doing this or that. You're just saying, hey, we're going to prepare and we're going to do our part. Yeah. We're going to preach the gospel. You invite people. We're all inviting people, and let's just see what God does. And oftentimes he shows up in ways you never dreamed.
Thank you for listening to the Busy Pastor podcast on the power of the big day. As we close today's episode, we want to invite you to do a few things. First, follow us on Instagram and Facebook @BusyPastor. And secondly, if you like today's episode, subscribe to the Busy Pastor and leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. The Busy Pastor podcast is produced by Marcus Bowling, video production Jake Tipton, audio engineer Brian Papik, and graphics by Zach Shaddix. We'll see you next time here at the Busy Pastor podcast. Till then, let's be busy with the right things. Thank you so much for tuning into our YouTube page. Hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and don't forget to comment below.
New episodes come out every Thursday. For more content and to join the Busy Pastor community, visit busypastor.org.